That's really cool, man. Well, why don't you kick us off with a little intro and background, man? I know you guys do so much these days. You're getting wider and wider. So why don't you kind of kick off and talk about what you've been up to?
Man, we've really been up to so much. Just this morning, I was talking with some credit unions out of Africa, and we're in DC next week talking with some the African WACU, which is the World Council of Credit Unions, and Acosta and Zimbabwe. Right now, we just signed our first African credit union in Zimbabwe, so that's really exciting. And then outside we've got deals in the EU, LATAM. Even doing some stuff over in APAC, which is really exciting. And the real big thing, I think what we're seeing is there's a move to kind of a new type of financial ecosystem. Just like when the 1920s, when the financial system had to reset, there's a resurgence of that right now. And it's being powered by a combination of things, people, connectivity, technologies like DLT, technologies like AI. And I was even at, we ran an accelerator this past weekend with a hackathon at Harvard,
I
MIT,
heard that.
Duke. Man, let me tell you guys, that was freaking cool. And by the end of the next day, 30 hours, guys, right? 30 hours, these guys had, some of them had fully functional working products with, now they still need more features, but in 30 hours, what we got? Oh, oh, so, and then there were ones even adjacent to it that were in health, fintech, health, but more health tech. But they got to make money, so there's a fintech component. And that's the reason we focus on finance and fintech and the liberation of fintech. That kind of this new cooperative, just like I used to call it social capitalism. I'm saying this word publicly for the second time, but I used to call it social capitalism. No, I used to call it a lot that, but this new phrase is cooperative capitalism because really that's what's happening. Social media, I don't think we should call it social media anymore because it's really media. It's really the media. That's the new media. We became the media. And now we're going to become the finance, and we're going to become a big part of the finance and decentralized and cooperatives and all that. I think it's the new model. I think transparency is becoming a big key of this. But, we've really just been excited to be kind of at the tip of the spear, bringing this evolution to fruition.
That's
I
so cool.
gotta say, man, this is not where I thought we were going to start this conversation. We went to Africa, we went back again, we went to healthcare, we're back into a hackathon, and now we're back on fintech, man. Wow, this is good stuff. Like, I love it, man. I tell you what, every day, I bet there's 3 times this week where I've just sat down and thought, man, I can't believe I get to do this for a living, and it's so exciting right now. An opportunity freaking everywhere, and for those that don't still have their head in the sand, pull your head out. This is the perfect time to go, wait a minute, there's a whole shift. And I think you nailed it. I've been telling like, there's a change in banking. There's a change in all of this happening right now. And if you don't see it, you're going to be kind of late to the game. And, another thing, man, is we talk to people about just staying involved, instead of as form a committee and make a decision. Why don't you just get in the game and start learning the rules of football, right? I mean, you don't have to play the game. You don't even have to be a coach. You could just sit down and understand it better, become a fan of what's going on. And then you'll be able to build your own team and be able to execute better.
I was talking with we just hired a director of our accelerator to really take this thing to the next level. And I was talking with him yesterday, and he was like, we're D2 and we're about to graduate to D1. No, everybody needs to understand that we're playing the same D1 game, and you need to get your team and your tools and your on the field gameplay. You need to bring it up to speed because you're competing against all these other
That's
D1
right.
organizations. There is no D1, D3 in business, the kind of way, and especially finance and banking. Everybody's moving for those deposits. We're all playing D1.
That's right, man. And this is the big thing is there's such a shift on where the money's going, whether it's, fintech or whether we're talking about private credit or whatever. There's a shift, and I mean massive amounts of money are moving this direction. And for the banks and credit unions that aren't engaged in what's going on, you just kind of like, man, we're kind of like shrinking and dwindling, and it's harder and harder to make a living. And it's like, no, it's way easier to make a
Hey,
living if you understand it.
it's this thing, man. I'm like, everyone overnight, all over LinkedIn and everywhere else, becomes an expert on the synapse and evolve problem, right? And then it's like every banker out there is like, Bass is too risky. We're not going to do that. I'm like, what do you think you're going to do then? Like, you think we're going to turn off fintech? Do you think that this whole thing is going to stop spinning? This isn't even like it's not even a choice. This is a duh. You have to in some form or fashion, right? And if you want to participate and play in the game, it's where everybody's at. And it's actually a really cool, excited, collaborative time.
Well, and John, you mentioned DLT. There's, if nobody's noticed this yet, and here's one of my, like, I'm pissed off. Okay.
Hey, let me get there with you.
We spend billions of dollars on advocacy and all this shit, and nothing changes. And then we get a different president, and in an hour, we've done more to change the rules of the game. Okay. And so when you see signals, you remember like the bat signal, and it's got the, hey, Batman, we need you, right? In Gotham. There's a bat signal right off the bat with Trump with, hey, we're going to, do a digital, coin. Okay. The minute that happened, everybody, I wrote a little thing about, is it time to rethink about, digital assets on your balance sheet? And everybody's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, whatever, man. But this is coming. Well, let me say it another way. It's coming back. Okay. And this time it'll come back with a vengeance and it'll stay. And I don't know what that means yet. I don't know exactly how it's going to happen. I don't know how the stable coins are going to work. But when you take a portion of the US government and say, we're going to take these funds and hold them, just like we do a gold reserve in a digital asset, you're going to see that digital asset probably go up. You agree?
Well, let me tell you what it is. Digital asset is a very wide berth idea, right? Right now, or 10 years ago, it meant Bitcoin and Ethereum. Right. And now it's evolved so much further, right? And now we're seeing the blending of document and digital assets, identity in digital assets, stable coins are already out there in digital assets. And it's already working. Like right now, there are countries like Argentina and Zimbabwe. This is one of the strategic reasons for us to be in, some of these places is they're dollarizing. They're actually multi-currency, but they're heavy dollarizing. And so right now, being able to get a phone in somebody's hand, they can download an app within seconds and hold a US dollar, right? And then use it in their local as needed. Everybody's walking around at the airport where you do money exchange, like, yeah, give me some of those, and I'll give you some of these. We're walking around that in our pocket, and it's about to get so much more advanced. And if you don't embrace, I think one of the things that is being missed out on, you use the word cooperative. This is a more cooperative type of ecosystem. The whole open banking movement, which is already so crazy in places like the EU, it's happening all over. I mean, we hear about cooperatives down in LATAM that are, and I mean the whole banking infrastructure is having to learn how to work on faster payments and collaboration and how to make money easier to move, because that's just what people expect. And if not, they're going to go to these, in some cases, riskier places where, for example, like some of these fintechs operate as banks that are unregulated. Page 792 of the EULA, line 62.797 says it's their money. And so we're seeing a shift of this equation right now.
It's great.
Hey, tell me, so look, I know, man, I first off would give you a thank you. I know that you and your team have done some favors for us, so thank you.
Thank you.
I know you're not a self-promotional person, but I really, man, I'm really interested in a lot of the things that you guys do. And I'd love if you talk a little bit about you've already done a great job of sort of outlining the change in the ecosystem and all of these cool places. What do you guys, from a business standpoint, what are the focuses? I know you're big into, kind of like I am, right? Just sort of the broader digital experience and, wallets, et cetera. What does this look like? But talk a little bit about how you see all that unfolding and how do you play in it?
Yep. So, we deploy several different. What's that?
How does an institution play in it?
Yeah. So, our focus has always been that for this to take off, the financial institutions need to embrace it, right? And there's a bunch of different reasons for that, and we don't have to go down all of that. But we said, what products do we need that people would use that we could deploy iteratively into the space to kind of start in a very niche, market that we could be the leaders in, and then to move beyond that, And so we initially launched with a kind of exchange product, self-custody exchange product for financial institutions, because a lot of them were worried about the whole, especially when the Sam Bankman-Fried stuff happened, who's holding the asset, and then a number of them kind of went back. So we offered a different solution, right? We didn't say, how can we do it better? We said, how can we do it different? And we focused on that differentiator. It got our initial traction. Launched a stable coin, and I'll talk through some use cases of what we do there. And now we have a myriad of products. They integrate into, from security, from wallet security, from, password distribution, key distribution, all these things that work seamlessly in the back end that people don't really have to know they're using, but that work and interject when necessary to say, hey, I'm this tool that you have. I'm helping you like this, right? And it's combining AI with experience and all these things. And so that's, for example, we have an international payments. We have a payments hub system, and we have an international payments component to that. And, just a couple of the use cases are like right now, a member, we can do embedded finance into the digital banking experience or launch a co-branded, white labeled, whatever solution for the institution. We embed that across any channel. And then that now becomes a tool that allows their member to have this really great tool for A to A, P to P, business to consumer, all that, and as well as to the outside world. So think about this: we're allowing a credit union in the United States to allow their member to send a family member in Ukraine, for example, $50, $100, and within a few seconds they're able to pay for it with their phone at the point of sale, at the if they're fifth in line at the grocery store, right?
Right.
And then
right.
we start thinking about, but underlying things, what's really happening there? It's more than just that. We're actually keeping that deposit at the credit union for a much, much longer period of time, because that person can hold a stable coin, and we can melt that stable coin down in near real time to fund the card, to pay the card, right? And other little things like that. So, what does that do? Well, that keeps more liquidity in the institutions, right? Because liquidity is a big thing right now. So if they're sending the nephew 300, if they send it through a Venmo, that 300 is gone. So what I think is happening here is kind of like the early days of the internet. The early days of the internet, we had, experience was competition. Experience was competition. So if you had a website, you got the kind of, you had the thing that all. Then we went back to price. Like once Expedia and everybody, there's 100 websites. Okay, where's the price, right? And then you had these aggregators tell you the best price, and then apps. That kind of same thing happened. Well, this is happening now, where now we can launch these experiences for these credit unions. And what are we competing again on? Price. And the financial. All these fintechs are built on top of financial institutions. So they're charging an upcharge, and their upcharge is experience, right? And they've held the lead there. And what we're able to do is provide an experience to both the consumer of that institution as well as a friend or anybody else around the world, with all these tools that interconnect right from inside digital banking. It's really cool. It's really cool. And so that's how we've been able to penetrate all these markets like Africa, the EU. Of course, we got great penetration in the United States, and it's really starting. We're really starting to feel a resurgence of a move to digital experiences. I've talked to more banks in the last few months that want to launch all digital, 100% digital brands, right? Yep. Banks and credit unions, and that's all over the world. Because people are starting to understand. I see these legacy. I'm not going to name names, but I see these legacy institutions with, in a street corner, five branches. What's going on here? And they're empty. Nobody goes into them. That's the other thing. So I think it's a real good thing for where we're at. So that's what we build. That's what we do. I hope that answers the question.
This is absolutely perfect.
Okay.
You talk about hang around the campfire and bullshit and debate each other, right?
We need to do that, by the way. I'm going to go.
Oh yeah, man, I love it. I love it. But we talk about. There's a moment where we call them, feature fight, right? So, okay, happened in mobile, all right? Well, it's in fintech now. We got features. Okay, there's a certain point out there where everybody has the ability to have that feature, credit builder, buy now, pay later, whatever, right? Okay, you kind of run out of bullshit. But to your point, it's built on top of an FI. And there's, I just sit here all the time around the campfire talking to guys isn't it a matter of time before the bankers go, wow, when I say bankers, banks, credit unions, banking, we could do that too. All right, and then you launch your digital brand. Gosh, there are so many of these banks turning these on right now, or building them right now.
So many. So
Yeah.
many, Dave.
If I'm at one Monday, there's so many of these happening. I don't think people understand the scope of what's really going on here, of the bankers going, you know what, I figured out my own niche. Or I've watched enough of this stuff in the fintech world to see some things that, hey, I could do that too, right? Or a Bass bank going, we don't necessarily need to use that fintech. We could just launch that ourselves. And okay, so what's your bank mobile app? Let me ask this question. If you have a division of your bank that's named A, B, C, how many of these can you launch, right? Infinite number of products that you can launch. And each one, Tanner calls them communities. And so if you're focusing on these communities, now, most importantly, you can focus on your geographic community, which you always have. And you can still do that, but you can take a particular app that serves a particular community.
But communities are not just that, they're digital. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just saying that in a particular feature set to meet that community or need or use case, right? And that's different. I don't think we all like to admit we don't all live the exact same financial picture or needs, right? And it's very different for all of us.
Yep.
Yeah, and it is about communities. It's about digital communities. Most of it, though, is brand positioning and tooling because they still need to move money. They still need loans. It's just like, what kind of loans do they need? What kind of insurances do they need, right? There's different underwriting cycles and different, and that's really where it meets the road. Like, I laugh because people are like, hey, we want buy now, pay later. I'm like, you mean a rebranded credit card? Is that what you're trying to launch, it's kind of what it is, it's a little different when it's embedded in a website, but the whole idea here is that it is community driven and it's going digital, and it's understanding that communities are not just physical in nature as far as like geographical. They're also digital geographies, digital communities, and that's really where we've been able to help these institutions tap into. And frankly, again, these rails have been the same. Like ACH has probably powered more transactions than any other thing in the last, 30, 40, 50 years, maybe longer. But it's been around a long time and everything's built on top of it. And now these things like stable coins are allowing people to build faster, easier, quicker, more accessible, right? Like to integrate with Visa or MasterCard or a payment service provider or this or that or whatever, weeks, months, year. Now, a developer in the middle of Africa can write a hackathon and build a software app in 30 hours that has a financial component that people can use. What?
I love it.
Right.
What?
I love this
such
stuff,
an interesting
man. There's a massive amount of cool things happening right now on the traditional front. It's okay, well, how do I ledger this? How do I do? Okay, we can go down that path for days, but the bottom line is there's a way to do this stuff easy. There's a way to do this compliant. You don't have to go out and do it the dumbest friggin' way you can come up with, right? And then what's around the corner that we all are beginning to see and smell a little bit better is a new and improved, like you said, DLT earlier. There's a new and improved way to where a lot of the things between AI and the way to ledger things, there will be a new way that is fully compliant, that is instantaneous and foolproof.
Transparent, I think, is another word I'd throw at the top of that list. It's going to be transparent. It's going to be reconcilable, right? Doge is already talking about putting government spending on blockchain, which I think is and it doesn't even have to be, private blockchains exist, like there are things that exist that can have just immutability. Like we take cores, for example, we take core data, we hash it into some meaningless hash, right? And then we check that. But you know what that gives us the ability to do? Look back at that point in time database and see if anything changed in it without putting data out there, right? Like there's so much more we could do. And I kind of look at it as Web 1, Web 2, Web 3. We're layering. We never threw Web 1 away. We just turned it into Web 2, built new tools. We left some of it behind. And the same thing's going to happen now. It's not this whole new thing. It's a new layer on top of the last layer. We're going to let some of that old layer fall behind. But a lot of that's going to come forward. Like, that's why I was talking with the bank this morning. Like their first thought was the core needs to be a blockchain based core. And I'm like, I don't know about that. Like, I don't know that we need that or we're there yet. And here's why we don't need that. And we're probably we can do this and have just as good of a ability to audit and all that. And, change perspective. So We are really seeing a shift in how companies respond to these types of changes, and I would say that with Donald Trump coming into play, it's opened the gates wide open around the world. Like when I was at Davos, so I went to Davos this year, and we went around to all the different houses and got to speak and do a bunch of other really cool things, and the sentiment there was the world is open right now.
Right.
The world is open, and not everybody maybe liked what's actually, but nobody really talked bad about it. I felt an optimism that I hadn't felt in a long time about being free to
This
try
is
and
what you talked
explore.
about earlier when you said that, it's like the 20s where there's like a fundamental shift. It's all, and everybody can feel it, smell it, sense it. We're not sure exactly where this goes, which is the coolest part of all because it allows for innovation at a high level.
Yeah, and when we were at Africa House for as example, I would say that it's a little different, Dave, than that. It's the last 3 to 5 years have been, what is this? How's it going to change the world? How are we going to use it? What is it going to be used for? This year, it was about, okay, now we understand what it is. Let's move forward. Like the Africa House, these guys were talking about a place where DLT ran their whole securities and exchange. The Nairobi Securities Exchange just launched on Hedera. They're doing all their securities exchange on Hedera, right? This is going to radically transform there are visions, there are 20, 30-year visions of how this stuff is going to transform every aspect from identities to, money movement to, and you, like you said, we already know about all that stuff. What's coming though, we can only speculate what's coming. We know what's in the now and the short-term future, but
it's
and
so
I can't
cool,
give
man.
you all the secrets, guys. I can't drop all the secrets.
Right.
We'll let you keep a few, man. Yeah. I think it's really interesting though, just watching everything evolve. And then look, as a contrast, we come back and let's go to a banking conference real quick, right? In our heads. And it's like, now let's have a session on the RFP process.
No shit.
No,
Thank you for
right?
saying that.
This is a freaking joke.
Well,
Let's do a gap analysis.
What do you mean by that, Tanner? What do you mean by that?
I
What
mean
he's
that
trying to say here is that we go through ignorant processes to repeat products that we're trying to get away from.
a gap analysis is a perfect example of that, of let's not take anything away from the customers. Well, I mean, this is what I've done my whole life. I can run through the math in a heartbeat and I can tell you your answer is going to be the last one in the world that you're actually trying to get to, because it's the only thing that's going to match up on your bullshit gap analysis, right? RFP process, on and on. These things are so tired and cumbersome, and they don't actually, in this day and age, to your point, they don't highlight the innovations that you're after, and they actually exemplify the old tired junk that you're trying to get away from. It's this horrible, icky cycle.
I ask this question all the time. If you think that the banks have the best products, raise your hand. And nobody raises their hand, right? And it's because of the process that they go through to select technology and to make decisions, right? And when guys like you come along, it's just like, when you dive too deep in the water and you're fighting to get your ass back to the surface, and all of a sudden that first breath, that's the way I feel when I talk to guys like you, man. It's like, yes.
Well, I think they're shell shocked. So why they keep doing these long RFP processes is they're so shell shocked by 72-year contracts with, trillions of dollars up front. That's what it feels like to some of these institutions, though. It's like, wait, you haven't signed I'm signing my next 7 generations' life away, and and it's like they're so shell shocked in that they're concerned that they're gonna do something that locks them into a bad product at a super high cost, and then they're already having to support something else and pay that money up front. And so there are solutions now that can deliver an iterative, low cost, easy to implement pilot for you to go try with some sub segment of your community to get a win. But back to the point of those people, there will be some that transform, and we see that, but mostly it's like there are people already not doing that, right? There's also the 20-30% of the market that's like, hey, we just want to move fast. We understand the times are changing. They are changing. And we've got to move forward. But then you'll have that middle ground. I think mostly though, what they're just now coming around to is the sigh of relief from the shell shock of these super hard to get into and out of long contracts with large providers that have stopped innovating a long time ago.
And then we have these conversion file fees at the end. And isn't not anybody yet figured out to like to scratch that part of your contract, right? But no, we do it. I mean, it's like Lucy in the football. Charlie Brown.
There are ways around that. There are ways around that. We've figured out ways around that stuff to just, make it easy. Like right now, we just partnered with Google and we're doing some really cool stuff around deployment, all 100% public cloud with Google for these credit unions and small banks so that they can move to within, months to a fully digital, like repurposed space in their offices. And, just every problem that you have a lot of it just goes away because of this infrastructure problem that they have. So, and Google's been a big part of that. I got invited to speak at their conference next month at Google Next, AI for Good, because of the accelerator and some of the stuff we did out of that. But we really see a transformation happening where a lot more of these institutions, and I think some of it is we see the cycling of a lot of executives and chair people are stepping aside and understanding that maybe I need to be like an emeritus or an advisor and let some fresher ideas come in. The NCUA, for example, just mandated a succession planning rule. And so there has been this like, I do need to do this. Now I'm required to it, but I do need to do this. And I think that's helping a lot as well. So the combination of easy to launch stuff. So the younger generations have kind of not really liked banking, especially the smaller community banks and stuff like that, because it was so hard to launch stuff, right? You had to have so much money and it's so hard to launch stuff. And every time they went to their partner to say, hey, can I do this? It's like, no, you can't do that. And now they don't have to, right? And now they're free to go. So I think this next wave of kind of leadership at these institutions over the next 2 to 3 years is going to really transform the perspective around that process, that onboarding process. They're going to understand that they can build themselves into a Venmo, right? And they're going to make it happen.
Because every banker should realize, hey man, we can do embedded. That's not the end of the world, right? For our merchants. Now, the second you do that, you went from the most uncool dude in the room to the coolest cat ever. I mean, I guarantee you, your nephews are going to want to hang out with you at Christmas and Thanksgiving and hear more about it, right? And it's like, how can I get a job at your bank? All right, that's the total opposite of where we've been. Of I can't find talent, no succession plan, mom. It's because you're boring the shit out of everybody, right? And it's too hard to move, and it's like being bogged knee deep in the mud, and your mud boots are full of mud, and it's really tough to move. Okay, get above that thing, and you can skate, man. You can really go, and it doesn't take a lot anymore to make an innovative move.
Well, just with our accelerator, we found that these kids in college I was up at Harvard, and they want to help the world, right? They want to build these types of things that make finance more equitable, accessible, open, easy to use. And they're on board to do this. And so we just got to go get them before they get pulled into some black hole, that keeps them sedated with money. And cut this if I'm going too deep into, what's going on here. But,
no.
No way, man. You're the most enthusiastic guy I've seen in a long time. I'm loving it.
I gotta tell you, man, this has been great. I have seriously enjoyed all this. I can't wait to pick up for version 2 of this conversation. But man, I want to give you a chance. Any final thoughts? You covered so much that is like everything that you said today should be the final thought. That should be the takeaway. But I'll give you a second.
Man, no, thank you so much for having me on. We've really appreciated everything you guys have done for us as well. I know that every time we need something, you guys are there. We love everything. I mean, we've told so many people about you guys, by the way. I've told
telling you thank you, man. I really appreciate it.
You guys are awesome. I mean, we tell everybody about you because we get all this great data. We get the ability to move fast. And I would say, you've been one of the main catalysts in our growth and in our ability to move fast and connect and to be relevant all the time. So thank you guys. And thank you for bringing me on to this. I'm immensely grateful for you guys bringing me on to this and, allowing us to collab in real time and throw around some ideas. So it's been a pleasure and an honor to work with you guys.
We don't need to wait till the roundup to have a beer. You can always come out here to the ranch and hang out.
Well, hey, I'm going to be down there next week with my kids, so maybe I'll just pop by and be like, "Hey, what's going on?"
Perfect.
Sounds great, man.
Fishing boat.
Look forward to seeing you next time.
Fantastic. Thank you guys so much.
See you, buddy.
Good job.
Bye.